Welcome everybody to Rethinking Innovations in Times of Change and how to seize new opportunities in a constantly changing world. It will speak about ideas, about processes and executions, how to search for innovation, what are some of the sources of innovation, and what to do with them, because once we have ideas, we need to put them through a specific process. And in the end, we will hear how to make them happen, how to turn these ideas into the products, and how leaders can create the environment where people can lead, where people can be effective and go through the change and actually perform this change effectively. The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. You might know that this quote is coming from the book on Steve Jobs' biography. It means that we need to have the ability to have the courage and have the ability to take the risks, because any invention, any innovation is about risk taking. And if you want to make something meaningful, something impactful, you need to have the ability to take the risk, be bold, and have the courage to do that. And now I can show you some examples of really extreme innovations. You might have heard that Elon Musk earlier last year in 2020 announced that Tesla, his company Tesla, will be accepting the Bitcoin as a way of payment if you want to buy a Tesla. Another good example is the Gary Vaynerchuk. He recently announced the NFT restaurants launch in New York. So for those who are not familiar with NFT, so NFT is a non-tangible tokens. It's also technology based on blockchain. These are emerging technologies that might have a serious impact on the future. Companies from the tech and health sector, they continue to invest in the R&D resources. At the same time, we do see that some of the established companies such as Oracle, Intel, Nokia, and so on has decreased. For example, they have like 1 or 2%. And some of the players have a negative score for the investments. You see here, for example, Nokia and Uber, they went through difficult times. And also for the healthcare sector, we have Sanofi, Novartis, and another company who has a negative level of resources allocated for the R&D. Here you see different examples of markets such as advertising, payment, media, gaming, hardware, cloud technologies, and messaging and social media. At the same time, you might see that the distribution is quite the same. So Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Microsoft, Alibaba, Tencent, they are the leaders in this sector, but they also penetrate to the different markets of their competitors. These are technological companies that try to penetrate to other markets. So they are not exclusively focused on their business, traditional business, but they do innovate into the other areas. So what does it mean? It to be flexible, because control doesn't work anymore. So businesses, organizations, and also people need to be flexible. And just take the example of this discussion that we're hearing right now about the remote work. There are two camps. Some people say like remote work is the future. Everybody should go remote and never go back to office. On the other side, we have people who say, no, everybody needs to come back to office. But I think none of this is the right solution. So we need to find the right way of how to deal with this question at this point of time. And second, how to address, how to be flexible, how to have a more innovative approach to solving this question of how to find the right balance between working from home and working in the office. It means also that the chaos brings uneasiness, of course, but this period also allows the creativity and the groups, because it's in this period where we can find the new way of thinking and new way of being flexible in our work and in our life. If you ask me, where would you search for ideas? I would tell you that there are different sources of ideas, and here you have some of these. So it comes from Drucker, a well-known professor in management and business. He actually defines several areas of this where ideas can come from, but I would like to draw your attention to two of those: industry and market changes and change in perception, because these two are very relevant for the current situation. Regarding the industry and market changes, we can refer back to the slide that we saw previously. You saw that different technological companies penetrate into the different industry, but at the same time, independently from on the markets where you are positioned, you can take these insights and see what is happening in your industry and on your market, and what can be the opportunities. And I would like to go back to Drucker, who said that innovators must always analyze all opportunity sources. It's important not to only look on one side or on one source. If you really want to be innovative and creative, you need to see the problem from different angles. Probably you need to have different people who can see the problem, the same problem, but from different angles, and come up with different solutions. But as I mentioned earlier, ideas without execution doesn't mean a lot. So for execution part, we need the process. And in the process, if we need to go really on a high level, I would define 3 main phases: ideate, incubate, and scale up. So in the first ideate phase, we try to define the customer problem. We really try to put ourselves in the shoes of the customer and define what is the potential solution can be developed by our company, by our organization. The results of the ideate phase is the customer problem definition. It means that we are able to understand the needs of the customer and we define the problem. And then we create the concept. And of course, this concept can be redefined or modified on the later stages. On the second stage, incubate phase, we have the business experiments. So it means that we already have the problem, understanding the problem, we have the concept, and we are ready to develop a sort of a prototype, test, and refine the proposal. The result of this phase are the designs, the prototypes. We validate with different tests, and we have even customer trials. So we're really trying to understand if our assumptions are right, and if the prototype is feasible, if it's financially viable. And again, on this stage, we can have the refinement phase where we can improve and redefine slightly the prototype, for example. And once it's done, when we have the trials, when we have the first signals from the clients that yes, this is a product that we want to buy, you can move to the scale up. So in the scale up phase, we have the combination of capabilities to maximize the results and profits. And this can result in the blockbuster project. So it means that your project or your product or service can become the blockbuster, the best-selling product. Or in some cases, if we're talking about the large organization, this new venture can become a separate unit. It can become a new business venture and take development on a separate from the core business. So again, what is important to take away from this slide is that we have 3 phases. Each of these phases has their specific steps and results. And on each of these stages, we have the right to redefine, to modify, and improve the results of the phase continuously. Now I'd like to give you some toolbox. So what do you do? Because all of these phases are different and you need to have a different tools to manage product or service innovation, to manage the process innovation and the business model innovation. As you know, when we speak about the innovation, we do have different levels. We do have different types of innovation. And here you see some approaches and methods that can be used either on the product or service side, on the process side, and then on the business model side. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'd like to draw your attention to the partnership co-design for the front end and business model canvas tools. In the partnership and co-design, the advantage of the approach is that we can have the synergies. We really need to search for the partners that can create the synergies for our companies. It helps to share the cost, and also it can allow us to improve the volume, both if we're talking about the volume of production or the volume of market. The second tool, which I would recommend to take a look at, is for the front end. So this is a phase 0. This phase starts before the actual new product development process starts. So it's a phase where you have a lot of creativity and where you can also capture value quite easily. And it also allows for customization. You might use this phase as a way to identify the needs of your clients and develop the best customization possible to address those needs. And finally, we have a business model canvas. It's a way to document and systemize information about your old business model, or better if you use it to create a new business model. It allows to improve, to find the ways for improvement, and as well to create values. And it also can help you to diversify. If you are working on the new business model, you can use this template to search for ways to diversification, either your product, service, or you can really redefine your business model. So we have spoke about the ideas, processes. So the ideas are important because we need to know what we want to do. So we have the resources, we have the different source of information, we select these ideas, and hopefully we know what we need to do. The process is also important because this is the second step. To make these ideas happen, you need some tools, you need to have the methods and methodologies to use and to bring it to the product launch or process launch. And finally, we are going to see about the execution, because knowing what to do, knowing how to do, but not doing is kind of useless. You need to know how to do things. And Tiza will explain what you need to do to better address this situation.
Thank you very much, Lesya. We have had a good explanation of the idea of the process, and now how to implement it, you depend on the people. And I think that's the important piece, because by definition, innovation means doing something new. And something new is introduced. It's the old way has to change. So the change becomes an integral part of this process. And any time that change is present, there is an element of uncertainty, since the future is not known. And uncertainty is never comfortable. I think we all can relate to what we're experiencing now and we have experienced in the past. If you don't know what's going on, there's a natural uneasiness. And so in times when you're implementing innovation, when you're creating important change in your organization, it is essential that leaders at all levels of the organization understand the importance of managing the process. And managing the process is not only looking at the tools and looking at that technical part of change, but also how do you address the people side of change? And that's what's going to be primarily what I'm going to be talking about, is the people side of change and the leadership role in making this happen. This is a classic model of the external change process. When you're looking into innovation, you probably have a desired state in mind. You know what's going to happen. The current state no longer works for you, or you choose to modify it for your profitability and growth. And of course, there's this transition state, which we looked at the tools. You have the ideation, you have the experimentation and the scale up. So all this is part of that transition process. But when this is happening in the organization, there is the people side of change, and that has been documented very elegantly by William Bridges when he talked about managing transitions, and he created the concept of the transitions, which is the people side of change, which is the psychological response when external changes are put upon people. And it happens all the time at all levels of the organization. And you can think about it even from your own experience. If something needs to change, you need to visualize into a new beginning. How is that going to be? What you knew before is ending. And then there's this in-between state that there is confusion. But when you can embrace the confusion and you can see opportunities in this confusion, then you can create innovation, you can create new solutions. So that's kind of being clear that change innovation has really two processes: the technical process that impacts the organization and the more psychological process that impacts the people within the organization. And that's the role of the leader to manage. It's very normal that when change is put upon you, there is resistance, because external changes represent the unknown. And if we can think about our experience, we are fearful of the unknown because it's hardwired in our brains for us to protect ourselves, and we need, the unknown is not a comfortable place. So expecting resistance is normal, and it should not be feared or expected to go away, but leaders need to acknowledge it, embrace it, manage it, and move ahead to make sure that you can address all of this in your organization. So just remember that resistance is the people's response to a willingness to make change, but explain it to us so you take away this normal fear of the unknown. There are many responses to change, and I have just a few examples. I have negative responses: anger, fear, denial, sabotage. There's some grief around change. So you have some of these, but also there are some positive responses. Excitement, I can embrace the new, I can become a champion of the change. So we should not look at responses to change as only being negative, but really explore the potential of how people respond to change. How do you personally respond to change? And consider two types of change. When you initiate a change, how is your response? And what happens when change is forced upon you? What is your response? I love change, but there's a natural caution. So I have recognized that I'm not as comfortable with change as I thought or think I am. Normal reaction. We are hardwired to fear the unknown in every change. I'm a change champion. I love to change. But at the same time, I need to realize there is a journey that we go through. And that's the journey that I would like to share with you in here, as well as give you some ideas as leaders, how you can manage this process. Thank you very much for participating and sharing your thoughts. But that's something that as leaders in organizations through transition, we need to think about. Leaders have the opportunity to shape the in-between state between what has ended and what's going to happen. The classic model of transition, which I showed to you before, is that an uncertain future has not been defined yet, and that needs to be defined by the leader, or when you initiate, you define yourself for yourself. Then you have this difficult piece of letting go of the past. That doesn't mean that you deny your past or that you deny the past of an organization. It just means that you acknowledge, honor what had happened, understand that in order to move forward, you need to let go. So there is a healthy process of honoring, accepting, and letting go so you're free to move to a new reality. And so there's a normal in-between state, which is the opportunity, which is the creativity and where we go. And some changes create bigger in-between states, others are quicker. But just recognize that there's always a little bit of a transition period between this new future desired and letting go of the past. We talked about the power of leadership. There's many characteristics of effective leaders. I think, one of the things that I would kind of look into in this list and emphasize a little bit are vision and purpose, being a good communicator, having empathy, and having humility. And I think vision and purpose are key because as we saw in the chat, people need to know why the change is taking place. They need to know there's a reason for the change, and they need to be helped into understand the reason and the purpose. And that's when the good communicator comes in, because the leader who thinks that people could read his or her mind have big surprises coming to them, because they need to be very specific and very clear so they can create the necessary followership to the vision and to the purpose that they are creating. Now, the other thing which is very important in leaders is empathy. And this is not being sorry for anybody or feeling sympathy. Empathy is the ability to see a situation from somebody else's point of view, is what we say, walk in my shoes. The perspective, you don't have the technology to be in Zoom. How can you do that? So there are many different ways that if you have empathy and you can walk in somebody else's shoes, you can start to see solutions that are going to continue to support the organization, but also engage people, give them empowerment, and give higher productivity. And so you see a lot of a need for empathy in leaders, especially in the current situation. And then humility. And I think just the ability to recognize I don't know everything and I can learn from others around me. That is a very, very important thing of leaders. There's an older article from Harvard Business Review, I can't remember the exact date, but it called The Incomplete Leader, and talks about in today's environment, no leader has all the skills necessary for success. Therefore, they need to be humble enough to recognize that and bring a group of people around them who can then create what else is needed for moving for change and innovation. So these are some of the things that I looked into, characteristics of effective leaders. You may have others, but especially in times of change, I think communication, empathy, and the humility become very important for your success in whatever you're trying to do as a leader. And not leader the CEO, leaders at all levels of the organization, because leadership can be exercised at all levels. So not put everything into the CEO's hands, but take responsibility and accountability to move the way you see best for your organization, for your employees, and for yourself. One of the things I like about communication in times of change is that clarity is more important than certainty. And again, some of the comments on the chat supported that. You don't need to be certain, but you need to let people know where you're going. And you need to communicate regularly so you give the confidence that you may not know exactly where you're going, but at least you have defined a path that can take you there. And to do that is important that you create a climate of trust. And so trust is key in times of change, in times of innovation, so you can move your organization to where you want it to be. In this handout that I have written, you're going to have a lot of information in how to communicate and how people can be impacted by change. We have some ideas in times of change, how to create an effective communication change plan and have that information in your hands. Trust is something that is hard to get and very easy to lose. And so therefore, I think we need to think about it, that creating positive relationships, being empathic, understanding people's needs, also showing good judgment and expertise. People expect their leaders to know what they're talking about, to be able to teach others, and to be able to have confidence. And what's more important, to have consistency in action. And also be open and be able to say, I may not have all the answers. What I know now is this, and be consistent when they move. There are many elements of trust, and trust is something that is fluid, but I think it's important as we look into change and innovation to think about how can we create and maintain a climate of trust in my organization. Here are some thoughts in how you can create as a leader a culture of innovation. Communicating clear goals and objectives. They don't need to be cast in cement. They can be what we plan to do, and if anything changes, I'll communicate with you, but have a clear outcome that people can rely on. Also, use the power inside your organization, the creativity inside your organization, and ask people to help find new solutions. Present a problem in a well-identified way and open the discussion. But open the discussion in a way that accepts people's ideas. Not that you have an idea and you're going to ask, openly accept the creativity of others. Now, also delegate down and empower people to develop others, and especially in the current situation in which people are remote. How can you create ways for development people when you don't see them every day? So that creates creativity and innovation to keep the creativity and the productivity going in different situations. And also teamwork. And I think without the teamwork, without the elements of collaboration, of trust, of communication, you are going to have more difficulty. So a climate of trust a climate of innovation will require all of these actions. And then you can move forward, and then you will not be afraid of the future, but you can look at it as opportunities for what you need to do in the future.
So now it's time to have a wrap up. So we have seen 3 areas of innovation in terms of change, so ideas, processes, and execution. We explained to you some sources of ideas, where can you get these ideas, and those include industry and market changes, new knowledge that can appear, new technologies as well, and changes in perceptions. Also remember that ideas without the processes and execution would be useless. So you need to have the right tools, and you need to choose those tools wisely, because some of them might be appropriate for your particular situation and your particular organizations. Some might not be the best for your current situation. And these tools and methods can be used for product services, for technologies, for processes, and even reinventing your business model. Spoken about the execution, how you do things, and how leaders can create the environment of trusted relationship, as well as communicate clearly and manage the changes effectively, and help individuals to go through these transition phases, through changes with the better results and more effectively. We have the Q&A session where you can turn on your camera as well as microphone. I'd like to start with asking you a question. What innovation is possible in terms of change for you and for your organization? And what is the key to success for you and for your organization?